Hello and welcome back to the History Shelf. I'm your host, Peg, and I am here today with one of the things I love most in the world. Well, that's overdoing it. But one of the places I love to haul books from the most, it's Hamilton Book, HamiltonBook.com. If you have not checked them out yet, you really should because you can find books for on the cheap and they're constantly updating their stock. So, if there's something out there that you want, it's a little too pricey right now. I give it about a year. If you have enough to read, you can easily wait a year, and it'll get marked down, or sometimes even sooner than that. It'll get marked down to between $5 and $10, and you can just load up, and that's what I do. That's how I have all these books, is because I am a thrifty bargain shopper. And in attendance is my guy Grant, right here on the shirt. Got this from the history list. Right? I think so, yeah. They make great t-shirts, history t-shirts. I'm pretty sure that's the name. It's been a while. I need to get some more shirts from history list. Anyway, so this haul is one of my last ones before we move from Hamilton Book. I'm debating on whether to pull the trigger on one more order from them that I'll just take from the box will be shipped. I won't even open it. I will just take it to the new place and try to figure out where to put them. But I don't know. I don't know if I will or not. But some of the books are not they're not easily found, and they're like deals and steals, and I just have a hard time turning those things down. But anyway, I ordered these books probably around Christmas time, and I'm just showing you now because January has been crazy. So, are you ready? Are you guys ready for a book haul of epic proportions? I'll try to keep this to about 30 minutes. I think we should be able to get through it okay. Let's start off with a couple of coffee table books that I just couldn't resist for the price. I think they were like $5.95 each. And I have versions of these and different things like Emperors of Rome, Leaders of Greece, things like that. But these are just really beautiful. And I'm not taking the shrink wrap off, guys, because I'm getting ready to move and put these into a box. And I want to kind of protect the covers as much as possible. But as you can see, it's a very slim volume, put out by Getty. And so the photographs and such are going to be outstanding. But I just picked this up, Illustrated Encyclopedia of Ancient Greece by Sean Sheehan. Again, like $5.95 or something like that. Just talks about everything about them, their lives, their everyday lives, myths and stories, gods and goddesses, their homes, temples, sports and games, wars and weapons. So, no self-respecting history shelf can be without any type of encyclopedia on Greece and Rome. So I also picked up one on Rome. Illustrated Encyclopedia of Ancient Rome by Mike Corbishley. Also put out by Getty. Again, just super marked down. It's just a nice little thing to browse through. And this will go out in my little parlor area, my new house. I put it out in a little coffee table area just to, I don't know, it's kind of nice when you have visitors. So, just, self-explanatory, very slim, but it's going to be heavy on the photographs, artwork, maps, things like that. Okay. And then this little dynamo, I think, I'm trying to remember if I have another history on the East India Company. Well, there's The Anarchy by William Dalrymple, which I think was in the running last year for the Kundal History Prize. But this gentleman I know has written a huge history on China. And so I did not know that John Key, wrote The Honorable Company, a history of the English East India Company. So, and this is put out by HarperCollins. It's just, kind of a interesting sized version. It's not a mass market paperback, but it's one of those shorter paperbacks that Really don't fit into any type of category. This was super, super cheap. Normally I give you guys prices. I think I misplaced that. But anyway, let me read this to you real quick. The Honorable Company. Over 2 centuries, the East India Company grew from a loose association of Elizabethan tradesmen into the grandest society of merchants in the universe, and that was in quotes. A huge commercial enterprise which controlled half the world's trade and also administered an embryonic empire. A tenth of the British Exchequer's total revenue derived from customs receipts on the company's UK imports. Its armed forces exceeded those of most sovereign states. Without it, there would have been no British India and no British Empire. John Kay, reconstructs this epic of expansionist endeavor from the journals and records of the company's employees, the first experimental voyages to the East, the earliest, often disastrous settlements, the later, often inglorious wars, and the often venal administrations. The story sweeps from southern Africa to northwest America, and from the reign of Elizabeth I to that of Victoria, abounding in bizarre locations and roguish personalities. That sounds like fun. From Bombay to Singapore and Hong Kong, the political geography of today is undeniably the creation of the company. So, this just seemed like a book I should have. I've been very interested in the East India Company. When I was in school, I wrote a paper on the 1847. Well, they call it the Indian Mutiny, but also also had another name for it. It's going to bother me now that I can't remember it, but I'm sure they're going to cover that in here. The Dark Age, Eastern Approach to Citizen. Yeah. John Key. So again, and he has written a very large. I have a book on it on China. Is it listed here? It might not have been. I think. Well, he wrote this one. This came out in 1991 in Great Britain. This is the 1993 a paperback edition. So happy to have it. Also happy to find this one finally go to a bargain price, and I picked it up for like $7.95. I've read one of his books before. This is Michael Walsh's Last Stands: Why Men Fight When All Is Lost. And of course, it has the hugely attractive blurb from Victor Davis Hanson. I mean, you can't go wrong if you're writing a book about like history, or especially that includes ancient history, and you're getting a blurb from Victor Davis Hanson. You've done pretty well. It says here, a philosophical and spiritual defense of physical courage and of masculinity and self-sacrifice in an age when those ancient virtues are too often caricatured and dismissed. So let me read to you the description, and then I might not opine, but I think I'm just going to respond to that aspect of the book. Award-winning author Michael Walsh celebrates the masculine attributes of heroism that forged American civilization and Western culture by exploring historical battles in which soldiers chose death over dishonor. In our time, men are increasingly denied their heritage as warriors. A survival instinct that's part of the human condition, the drive to wage war is natural. Without war, neither the U.S. nor any other country would exist. The technology that has eased manual labor, extended lifespans, and become an integral part of our lives and culture has often evolved from wartime scientific advancements. War is necessary to defend the social and political principles that define the virtues and freedoms of America and other Western nations. We should not be ashamed of the heroes who sacrificed their lives to build a better world. We should honor them. The son of a Korean War veteran of the Incheon landing and the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir with the U.S. Marine Corps, Michael Walsh knows all about heroism, valor, and the call of duty that requires men to fight for something greater than themselves, to protect their families, countrymen, and most of all, their fellow soldiers. In Last Stands, Walsh reveals the causes, outcomes, and lasting legacies of more than a dozen battles in which a small fighting force refused to surrender to a far larger force, often dying to the last man. From the Spartans' defiance at Thermopylae and Roland's epic defense of Charlemagne's rearguard at Rosenvaux Pass, through Santa Anna's siege of the Alamo, defended by Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie, To the clash at the Little Bighorn between Crazy Horse's Sioux Nation and George Armstrong Custer's 7th Cavalry, to the Soviets' titanic struggle against the German Wehrmacht at Stalingrad, and more. Walsh reminds us of the debt we owe to heroes willing to risk their lives against overwhelming odds, and how these sacrifices and battles are not only a part of military history, but also of our common civilizational heritage. Now, I know that description is going to irk a lot of people. And it might surprise you to know that it does not bother me. I don't know. It doesn't bother me, and it might bother a lot of women or feminists or even men who are just like, we're not all about war and stuff, but I think history shows us differently about human nature. And I have always championed the instinct of men to physically show courage and to protect those who cannot protect themselves when it's used in a good way, not when it's used to obviously hurt those who are defenseless. There's all these types of things can be used to bad ends. When used in the defense of those who cannot defend themselves, male physical courage is something to be applauded and honored. I've always just thought that it's a virtue, and it's instinctual. It's an instinctual thing. Whether you're enlightened on the level of, if you're a man and you see a woman being something going on against a woman, your instinct is to help, whether you know her or not, whether she's your family or not. Your instinct is to help. Now, I hope that would be the case too if it was also a man that was being attacked. But anyway, I'm just trying to say, in wartime, physical courage and the masculine virtues are important. And so I'm not all about dogging out guys, men for being men. I'm just not. I mean, women have their virtues and men have theirs. And so let's not try to turn one into the other, or I don't know. I'm sure I might get flamed for that. And that's fine. I have my opinion and I'll state it. And if you want to debate me on that, you'll be debating yourself, because I don't get into arguments on my channel. But anyway, this book sounds really fantastic, and talks about male physical courage in war, fighting for each other. Mostly is what I've read from a lot of war memoirs, is like, when men are in the trenches, they're not thinking of the big grand overarching, I'm defending my country. They're fighting to protect and get through the fight alive, but also to save the life of the guy next to them. And that's how it was all the way back in the hot gates of Thermopylae. And, the Spartans and the Persians and the, what were the other guys at Thermopylae? It wasn't just the Spartans. It was like the guys from Attica, right? Not Attica, like the prison, but, it began with an A, and it wasn't the Athenians. It was another group. But it was a mixture of men from different city-states. And, they were buying time for the other, for the fleet, and for the people to flee and get out of the way. They were buying time. So anyway, that was a long discursion just to say that I know that insert might turn off a lot of people, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. That's all I wanted to say, and I look forward to reading this. All right. Because as you know on this channel, I read a lot of military history. And maybe you're not surprised that I shared this, that obviously I think it's, war is unfortunate. It is. I don't think we're ever going to live in a world where people do not fight. That's just, you have to accept facts, people. We're people. We're human beings. It's hard-coded into our DNA. All right. Next book. I'm so excited for this one. This one will go into my H.W. Brands collection. This was his second to last most recent book. He has been cranking these things out like no one's business. But this one's all about the American West, a history of the American West, and this is Dreams of Eldorado, a history of the American West by H.W. Brands. So Look at that nice color. It's got almost like the little gold filigree kind of like look on the. I even got a little bit of glitter on my fingers from that. This is put out by Basic Books. Should have said the other one was St. Martin's Press. So this came out a couple years ago. Again, and since then he's written another one about our first Civil War. So let me read this to you real quick here. By the time he became president in 1801, Thomas Jefferson had been looking west for decades. He saw the country's population expanding and judged that America must expand too, lest the new nation become as crowded and conflict-prone as Europe. When Napoleon, to Jefferson's surprise, offered to sell French Louisiana to the U.S., Jefferson leapt at the offer and launched America on a fateful and fraught journey west. In Dreams of Eldorado, H.W. Brands tells the thrilling panoramic story of the settling of the American West, from Lewis and Clark's expedition in the early 19th century to the closing of the frontier by the early 20th. He introduces us to explorers, mountain men, cowboys, missionaries, and soldiers, taking us from John Jacob Astor's fur trading campaign in Oregon to the Texas Revolution, from the California Gold Rush to the Oklahoma Land Rush. Throughout, Brands explores the contradictions of the West and explodes its long-standing myths. The West has been celebrated as the proving ground of American individualism. In reality, the West depended on collective action and federal largesse more than any other region. Ooh, so that's his argument there. That's interesting. Oh, okay. The West brought out the finest and the basest in those who ventured there, evoking both selfless heroism and unspeakable violence. Visions of... Oh, there was a typo in the book flap copy. Vision, it says visons, like bisons, but with a V, visons, but it's supposed to be visions. Visions of great wealth drew generations of Americans westward, but Eldorado was never more elusive than in the West. Balanced, authoritative, and masterfully told, Dreams of Eldorado sets a new standard for histories of the American West. And there's good old H.W. Brands. You know him. You know his face. You've seen him on all these like book TV and all these different, interviews on different channels and podcasts. He's great. I enjoy his work. So this will go on my H.W. Brands shelf alongside the newest book that I showed you in my last video that I got from my History Book Club. Our first Civil War, about the American Revolution. So, good stuff. And I don't even know what he's working on now. What could he possibly be writing about now? But either way, keep writing, sir. We enjoy your work. And here we go. Like, slim little volume. Just as I was browsing through the history stuff online at HamiltonBook, this one popped up, and it's part of my collection of Osprey. I don't know if you can see over my shoulder right here. These are those slim volumes that are put out by Osprey Publishing that, what are they? They're about 90 pages. And they'll highlight like a military campaign. And they have hundreds of them. And they're numbered like at the top on the spine, you know, what number they are. Well, this is Civil War related. And I think I've got maybe one or two Civil War ones, and I'm trying to, I would like to own all of the Osprey editions that have Civil War themes, whether it's campaign or strategy or uniform, or they have different categories. But this is Atlanta, 1864. Sherman Marches South by James Donnell, illustrated by Steve Noon. And you know I love the artwork. It's one of the main features. I just love it. So as you can see, like at the top, we'll focus, it says campaign 290. So I'd like to get more of these. As you know, this is about his march south. And by 1864, Union forces in the Western Theater outnumbered their Confederate counterparts nearly 2-1. And under the aggressive leadership of Major General William Tecumseh Sherman, they pushed into Georgia. What followed was one of the most dramatic and tactically interesting campaigns in the Civil War, as Sherman and Confederate General Joseph E. Johnston fought a series of running battles to decide the fate of Atlanta. So featuring stunning illustrations, contemporary modern maps, This volume explores the entire Atlantic campaign, from Sherman's initial clashes with Johnston's Army of Tennessee to the final Confederate resistance under General John Bell Hood. Bloody General John Bell Hood. Let me tell you about him. This is General Hood. This guy was missing a leg, an arm. I mean, he gave physically to the Confederacy. Man, but he was as aggressive as you. This guy was just, that was his answer to everything. Was just, let's just charge, let's just fight. So many casualties under General John Bell Hood. There he is right there. But do you see what I'm saying? Look at these maps. And it's just replete throughout. And of course you got pictures. Modern day pictures, color pictures. Beautiful, like, again, artwork, illustrations, inset. I love this stuff. So topographical kind of maps that kind of make it almost like 3D. So it's kind of cool. I really like it. So I think it was $7.95, and you know what? That might seem a lot for a small thing, but let me tell you, because they are so rich in just the work they put into in the maps, and then just the stunning amount of graphics, illustrations, and whatnot. These things run normally above $20, publisher's price. If you find them marked down, they're like $17. I mean, so they're not cheap. So when you find one that's under $10, I'm telling you, as an old pro at trying to collect these Osprey ones, if you see anything below $10, you just need to nab it, because it's not going to get any lower than that. So I was happy to get this and add it to my growing collection back there. Another Civil War book, but this is kind of like a slim biography. I've always been kind of intrigued by this character in the Civil War. I mean, I knew that he was kind of like a religious dude, but don't know much else about what made him decide to side with the South. But this is the Bishop of the Old South, The Ministry and Civil War Legacy of Leonidas Polk by Glenn Robbins. And this was put up by Mercer. Let me tell you what year this came out. As I was browsing the different categories in HamiltonBook, I came across this one in the Civil War section. And it's a first edition. And I was really intrigued by it. I think I got it for like $5 or $6. This came out in 2006 by Mercer University Press. It's, again, a slim little volume. But let me read this to you. The controversial and tragic Civil War career of Leonidas Polk has cast a long and obstructive shadow over the life of one of the antebellum South's most significant religious leaders. The son of a wealthy slaveholding veteran of the Revolutionary War, Polk graduated 8th in the West Point class of 1827. Although he seemed destined for martial service, he abruptly and unexpectedly resigned from the military to pursue a ministerial career that culminated with his selection as the first Episcopal Bishop of Louisiana. As the owner of more than 200 slaves and a profitable sugar plantation, Bishop Polk commanded a unique platform from which he articulated a vision of the Old South that merged Episcopalian values and traditions with the region's more dominant evangelical religious culture. And if that doesn't twist your brain, I don't know what will. Let me read a little bit more. Polk displayed virtually no interest in his denomination's theological squabbles. Instead, his genius rested in his attempts to cultivate a religious solidarity among white Southerners of all classes and to broaden the social and cultural appeal of Episcopalianism in the South. Polk's mission for the University of the South illustrated his dedication to denominational purity, but it also embodied the fundamental tenets of a religious and culturally based Southern nationalism. Ultimately, Polk's lost cause mythmakers developed a public memory of the Bishop General that celebrated the virtue of the Christian gentleman who had waged war for Southern independence. In this book, a considerable amount of new information on Polk's family, his time at West Point, his ministry, his life as a planter, his role with Sewanee, and his place within the pantheon of lost cause icons has been brought to light. What emerges is a clearer portrait of the bishop of the Old South. Okay. So going to be a lot of different things in here theologically. I think it's going to focus a lot on that. But I'm fascinated by the contradictions, just the moral contradictions here. The planter is priest. The emergence of a Southern nationalist. Yeah. And I think the back is very cool. It kind of has the church look there. So, super marked down. And you know this, I didn't have it in my Civil War collection, and now I do. And I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about this guy. Just because it's fascinating. I don't know how you can... I know it was a different time and a different place, but I just don't understand how you can be a preacher with the Christian faith and then being okay with slavery. I just don't get it. And I know that the Bible had slavery, I know that. But come on, people. It does call you to be a critical thinker. I had to take something. I was getting a little dry there. Okay, so the next book, marching on at 26 minutes. Another book I had my eye on for a while, and I finally decided to get it. This is put out by Doubleday Books. This came out in 2019, so it's a fairly recent book. This is The Map of Knowledge, a 1,000-year history of how classical ideas were lost and found. And I don't know if you can see it. There you go, by Violet Moeller. It's a really nice cover, and I got it in hardcover. I think they also have a paperback version available for like a couple bucks cheaper. But you know me, I like my hardcovers. All right, let me read this to you. After the fall of Rome, as civilizations collapsed and libraries burned, ancient knowledge was somehow preserved to fuel the revival of the Renaissance. This thrilling history debut tracks 3 classical books as they were passed hand to hand through 7 cities during a perilous 1,000-year journey toward survival. That's cool. So it says here, the foundations of modern knowledge were laid by the ancient Greeks, whose ideas were written on scrolls and stored in libraries throughout the Mediterranean and beyond. But as the vast Roman Empire disintegrated, so did appreciation of these precious texts. Christianity cast a shadow over so-called pagan thought. Books were burned. In the Library of Alexandria, the greatest repository of classical knowledge was lost. Yet some books did survive the Middle Ages, and in The Map of Knowledge, award-winning historian Violet Moeller explores the role played by cities around the Mediterranean and the Middle East, rare bastions of knowledge in a dark world. In Baghdad, Cordoba, Toledo, Salerno, and Palermo, scholars driven by a passion for books and supported by enlightened heads of state collected, translated, and shared manuscripts, augmenting Greek scholarship and allowing classical ideas to flourish. In the late 15th century, those ideas finally reached Venice, the first great center of printing in Europe, where books were reproduced by the hundreds, thereby guaranteeing their legacy. The Map of Knowledge takes readers into the courts, libraries, bookstalls, and traders' markets of cities that supported a sparkling intellectual life in years not typically associated with learning, and highlights the crucial role played by Arab scholars in improving the cornerstone works of Western thought. Okay, cool. So, and now we're finally getting around to the 3 books. They saved that for the last part of the description. Moeller's lively and accessible history follows 3 foundational books: The Elements, Euclid's Treatise on Mathematics, Ptolemy's Almagest on Astronomy, and Galen's writings on medicine, as they were rescued by readers' insatiable curiosity about the world. Well, so they say she's an award-winning historian. What is this? I don't know is that award-winning? Yeah, she won an award. Well, here's our author, Violet Moeller. Very nice, very pleasant-looking woman. She's a historian and writer based in Oxford, England, with a PhD in intellectual history from Edinburgh University. She won the Jerwood Award. There you go. That's the award. She won the Jerwood Award from the Royal Society of Literature in 2016 for a first major work in progress for The Map of Knowledge. Okay. Fantastic. I'm excited. It's going to be good. And there's even color. Yes. Color pictures, color illustrations, inserts. Good stuff. Throughout. So if you're interested, check it out on Hamilton Book. Good deal. I'm checking to make sure my camera's still working. Okay, so this is great. I bought this book as I was in a buddy read with John David and Bill Rutenberg at the Rutenberg Library of John Meacham's The Politics of Power, I think. It was a biography on Thomas Jefferson. And it reminded me that I've been wanting to get this book by another founding father, American Revolution time frame historian that I just loved, Alan Taylor. And this is a recent book by him, and I've been meaning to get it. And I found it on Hamilton Book, right in the price range I want for a nice hardcover. So yay, I finally have it, Thomas Jefferson's Education. So I thought it would be a nice supplement to the John Meacham biography, which is great. And there it is, Alan Taylor. So this is all about, this is put out by Norton, Thomas Jefferson's Education. This came out a few years ago. Let me give you the year. Yeah, I guess it's 3 years ago now since it's 2022. This came out in 2019. Nice, beautiful insert. It says here this is a brilliant absorbing study of Thomas Jefferson's campaign to save Virginia through education. By turns entertaining and tragic, this beautifully written history reveals the origins of a great university in the dilemmas of Virginia slavery. It offers an incisive portrait of Thomas Jefferson set against a social fabric of planters in decline, enslaved black families torn apart by sales, and a hair-trigger code of male honor. A man of deft evasions who was both courtly and withdrawn, Jefferson sought control of his family and state from his lofty perch at Monticello. Never quite the egalitarian we wish him to be, this is true. He advocated emancipation, but shrank from implementing it, entrusting that reform to the next generation. Devoted to the education of his granddaughters, he nevertheless accepted their subordination in a masculine culture. During the Revolution, he proposed to educate all white children in Virginia, but later in life, he narrowed his goal to building an elite university. The man was riddled with contradictions. In 1819, and we all are to some extent, but some are more circumscribed by their contradictions, like he could have been an even greater person than he was. But Jefferson was just torn in two different directions. In 1819, Jefferson's intensive drive for state support of a new university succeeded. His intention was a university to educate the sons of Virginia's wealthy planters, lawyers, and merchants, who might then democratize the state and in time rid it of slavery. But the university's students, having absorbed the traditional vices of the Virginia gentry, preferred to practice and defend them. Opening in 1825, the university nearly collapsed as unruly students abused one another, the enslaved servants, and the faculty. Jefferson's hopes of developing an enlightened leadership for the state were disappointed, and Virginia hardened its commitment to slavery in the coming years. The university was born with the flaws of a slave society. Instead, it was Jefferson's beloved granddaughters who carried forward his faith in education by becoming dedicated teachers of a new generation of women. That's fantastic. And this is Alan Taylor. I really enjoyed his pre-revolutionary history of American colonies. That was a fantastic book. And it was actually an assigned text for one of my classes that I took for my degree. But I really loved it. I kept the book. It's like a beat-up used paperback. But I was like, this is fantastic. And so I've accrued a few more books by Alan Taylor, which I'm really excited to get to. This one was a couple of years old. I think he's come up with a recent one. And I know I've shown it on this channel, and I'm blanking on the name. But anyway, do you see the wealth of history I find at Hamilton Book? I cannot sing their praises enough. They know nothing about me or this channel. They do not have a social media presence. If people think that I get a commission from ballyhooing this company, I don't. all I'm telling you is there's really great deals on a variety of topics. They also sell DVDs and CDs and whatever. But I go there for the history, man, and some fiction too. I can find some stuff marked down, but such good stuff. I'm telling you, especially on the history front. Okay, so this book, is a Casemate book. My good friends at Casemate. And this came out a few years ago, I think. Yeah, 2016. So this is an older backlist. You know, I get a lot of the new stuff from Casemate, which I highlight on this channel. In fact, I will have a new video coming up very shortly. Tons of new releases coming out from Casemate and Pen and Sword and Helion and all the different imprints underneath Casemate. But they still have a wonderful backlist of books, and I'm finding them popping up everywhere. So when I see them, I nab them. And then we're going to cover a century of warfare here. And this is covered. This is called In the Shadows of Victory, America's Forgotten Military Leaders from 1776 to 1876 by Thomas D. Phillips. Look at that. Now that's a Civil War photo right there, or illustration. Yeah. I love it. So let me just show you here. History plays tricks sometimes. During the course of America's experience, it has enshrined an exceptional few military leaders in our collective consciousness as great, while ignoring others often equally as deserving. In the Shadows of Victory takes a look at an array of American battlefield commanders who were as responsible for triumph as their more famous peers, yet have often gone unsung. I love books like this, you guys. For example, a few of the thousands who pass by the traffic square between Fifth Avenue and Broadway in Manhattan each day realize that it houses a tomb. Fewer still understand that beneath the obelisk rests one of America's best military commanders, William Worth, a hero in not one but two of the nation's wars. Similarly, the Civil War general who never lost a battle and who many military historians believe fought one of the two most perfect battles in history. Yes, they're talking about my other guy. I forgot that this book mentions him. They're talking about my other guy. You know that my guy is Grant, right? Well, there's another guy I love on the Union side. And some of you who really follow me closely will know who I'm talking about, but it's going to be revealed here in a second, okay? Because it's true. Okay, so the Civil War general who never lost a battle and who many military historians believe fought one of the two most perfect battles in history was not Grant, Sherman, Lee, or Jackson. It was George Thomas, who never extolled his own cause, but helped immeasurably in saving his nations. Yeah, General George Thomas, he was a Virginian, and he stayed loyal to the Union, and he lost his family in the process. They all would have nothing to do with him. Now, you talk about courage. And he was a brilliant general, a brilliant strategic and tactical commander, to the point where I know that Grant may have been a little jealous of him. That's like one of the only things I ding Grant for is like how he treated Thomas. It's like, come on, Yulee. George Thomas was amazing. The Rock of Chickamauga. So as we continue on in the book here, it says, from the War of Independence through the Mexican War and Civil War, and during the numerous Indian wars, great combat leaders have emerged across America's battlefields, yet have just as suddenly slipped through the cracks of history once the guns were silent. At the same time, conflicts themselves have often disappeared from consciousness, the public forgetting the fights the country waged against the Barbary pirates, the British in 1812, and against the Seminoles and Apaches. In the Shadows of Victory describes the heroics and command acumen of 25 superb military leaders whose sacrifice and skill have often been neglected. As such, it provides a fascinating tour through early American military history and the various martial challenges the young nation faced during its first century of existence. Doesn't that sound awesome? So some of the people covered in here I've heard of, like Wesley Merritt, and he was a Civil War cavalry general. Union Cavalry. There's a lot of Civil War guys covered here, obviously. We've got, Montgomery Meigs. He was the quartermaster general of the Union. And his son was killed. And the story goes that he was so outraged by his son's, and grieved by his son's death, who was fighting for the Union, because Montgomery Meigs was an older man, but he was a quartermaster general. Anyway, he said, "I'm going to bury these Union dead right at the doorstep of Lee's house," which was Arlington, and that's how we have Arlington National Cemetery. Oh, David Dixon Porter, correct? Yeah, and there's George H. Thomas, my guy. Let me give you a picture of him. Fantastic. This is my guy. Along with Grant, this is my guy. Love him. So, another fantastic book, and it takes you in the beginning of Revolutionary history. They cover like Nathaniel Greene, Light Horse Harry Lee, Stephen Decatur. I think Stephen Decatur was War of 1812. Sorry. Daniel Morgan was American Revolution. So, a backless beauty from Casemate. I was happy to score it for a song at Hamilton Book. Okay, so now we're down to the last book on this Hamilton book haul. And this is by, I didn't know this guy was a historian. I knew he was the brother of of Lady Diana Spencer, but she's, that was her maiden name. Anyway, it's Charles Spencer, and he actually has a new book out, I think called The White Ship, which I want to get. But I didn't know that he was an active, mainstream writing historian. Did not know. But this is To Catch a King, Charles II's Great Escape, by Charles Spencer. And I think I have Killers of the King, actually. So this is, okay, so I actually have I already have one of his books, and then I'm going to get the next one on The White Ship. But History with the Pace of a Thriller by Julian Fellows. This is going to be good. So, how did the most wanted man in the country outwit the greatest manhunt in British history? In January 1649, King Charles I was beheaded in London outside his palace of Whitehall, and Britain became a republic. When his eldest son Charles returned to England in 1651 to fight for his throne, he was crushed by the might of Cromwell's armies at the Battle of Worcester. With 3,000 of his supporters lying dead and 10,000 taken prisoner, it seemed as if Charles's dreams of power had been dashed. At 6 feet 2 inches tall, the prince towered over his contemporaries, and with dark skin inherited from his French-Italian mother Henrietta Maria, he stood out in a crowd. How would he fare on the run with Cromwell's soldiers on his tail and a vast price on his head? The next 6 weeks would form the most memorable and dramatic period of Charles's life. Pursued relentlessly, he resorted to disguise and deception, and had to rely on grit, fortitude, and good luck. With bloodied feet and facing certain death if caught, he utilized a patchwork of hiding places that had evolved to hide Catholics from persecution. He hid in an oak tree, an event so fabled that over 400 English pubs are named Royal Oak in commemoration. It's also a city not too far from where I lived in Michigan. We have a Royal Oak, Michigan. Isn't that funny? Anyway, he witnessed a village wildly celebrating the erroneous news of his death, and a medical student wrongly imprisoned because of his similarity in looks. He disguised himself as a servant and as one half of an eloping couple. Once restored to the throne as Charles II, he told the tale of his escapades to Samuel Pepys, who transcribed it all. Fantastic. In this gripping, action-packed true story based on an extensive archive material, Charles Spencer, best-selling author of Killers of the King, uses Pepys's account and many others to retell his epic adventure. Pepys's diary is another one of those I really ought to books, I really ought to read, which, again, still thinking about a new series on this channel, which will be one of those things. I really ought to read, whatever. But I think Pepys's diary is something that I want. I would love some suggestions from all of you out there who have more knowledge on this than I do about what version is maybe the best for me to read as someone new to Pepys's diary. I know there's abridged, unabridged, or it's really hard to find unabridged versions, and I like unabridged, and sometimes they're outrageously priced because they're hard to find. But if anyone out there knows where I should start with Pepys, please let me know in the comments below. I will be looking for any type of help on that. So yeah, and this is Charles Spencer, and that was Lady Diana's brother. Yeah, is her brother. Well, she's gone, but he's, You know what I'm talking about. Present tense, past tense. Okay, so again, I did not know until recently. I think I got Killers of the King, not noticing Charles Spencer and not really making the connection. I mean, Spencer is a fairly, ubiquitous name. But then I saw Aspects of History, my magazine, kind of did an interview with him about his new book coming out, The White Ship. And then I saw him on a channel, on a podcast talking, and someone mentioned his, relation to Diana. And then I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. So, yeah. So that rounds out my latest Hamilton book haul. Again, I am debating on whether to, I'm trying to save my money. It wouldn't be a huge purchase. It would be like over $100, and I would pay that off immediately, just to keep my, my credit clear because, doing a loan thing right now. But I might have one more Hamilton book haul coming, which I'd like to save for the new home. So with that rationalization in mind, I might just have to do it. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed these books, and let me know what you think below. I would love your insights into approachable volumes of Pepys's diary, because I'm really intrigued about that. And in fact, this book uses a quote on the back from Pepys. Upon the quarterdeck, he fell into discourse of his escape from Worcester, where it made me ready to weep to hear the stories that he told of his difficulties that he had passed through, of his traveling 4 days and 3 nights on foot, every step up to his knees in dirt, with nothing but a green coat, and a pair of country breeches on, and a pair of country shoes that made him so sore all over his feet that he could barely stir. Samuel Pepys, May 23rd, 1660. Fabulous. Isn't that great? Okay, so I'm really excited by all these books, and I can't wait to sit in my new home with a new view of the mountains and just with a cup of tea and read. Oh, God. I can't wait, you guys. So excited. Okay, I'm almost at 50 minutes, but I know you guys love these book hauls, so I took a little time with them, gave you a description of each. I will, of course, put the link below to Hamilton Book. It's really simple, HamiltonBook.com. But if you're looking to find some of these books, they're probably still available. You could get your own bargain copy, and I suggest you do. All right, guys. Well, I hope to hear from you soon in the comments below. Have a great day, and we will see you next time on the History Shelf. Bye.